Hi everyone, welcome back to As We Speak. Following on from our discussion about racism and biases with Stephanie Pujol and Liza Tait Bailey, now that we've understood these different nuances, these different biases, we talk about how we can possibly cut it at the roots and raise a new generation of essentially anti-racist children. Thank you, guys. So, I have 2 young kids, and when my little one was even younger, like 5 and 6, they already started talking about the color of their skin and the playgrounds. My son has come up to me going, oh, my friend says I'm so brown and he's so white, or he's so Chinese, or his eyes are twitchy. How do you deal with this? And you know how we say, oh, the world is one, or religions are one, it's the same God. Do you do the same? I mean, do you take a colorblind approach? What should you be doing?
I definitely don't think we should be taking a color blindness approach. And yeah, just to say that I think, thinking about my own way of being brought up, one of the things I really appreciated my mum doing was talking about difference, right? And actually I grew up with my mum working with people who have disabilities, and she never shied away from talking about their disabilities, and but like not in a judgmental way, but in a like, oh, some people have XYZ. And so I think we think about that in lots of different ways, but yeah, like it's just important to acknowledge it and acknowledge that there are kind of connotations to that.
So I do have children, and they've mostly grown up in the UAE, but I think, and so my children I'm half Greek and their father is French, so they're a mixture of a few different cultures, but actually they've been brought up as English, but living in the Middle East. I think it's really important to address culture and to embrace your culture. So as a half Greek person, I remember being told by my mother one day when I came downstairs as a child to do my hair differently because I looked too Greek. But in the same breath, if somebody would upset me at my school, she would say, you shouldn't hang around with the English girls, they're mean. So I think it's really important to teach children to be proud of their culture, to embrace their culture. The wrong thing to do is be colorblind about it. I think it's really important to educate them that this is who they are, they should be proud of who they are, and that this might get pointed out. And it's okay to acknowledge a difference as well. You don't need to be quiet about it. When they're making acknowledgement about somebody's skin color, it's not necessarily coming from a bad place. They're just noticing that somebody looks different to them. And, children, they say what they think, and they say it as soon as they think it. And can't quieten them, but you can explain appropriate ways of talking about things and encouraging some interest in other people's cultures, to encourage them to read books where, historically in films and in TV, the role models are white, the good guys are white, and encouraging, and the bad guys are black or people of color. So encouraging them to watch programs that portray good qualities in people of, in people of color that they can aspire to. So they're not only looking at white people as good, black people as bad.
Yeah, so Ibram X. Kendi has written a kid's book called The Anti-Racist Baby, and then he's written an adaptation. I think someone else has adapted his book Stamped about kind of the history of race in the US for young adults. And so, there are a ton of books. When I was a teenager, reading Noughts and Crosses was a really fundamental experience for me, because Noughts and Crosses, Mallory Blackman, she's just the most amazing person. And she flipped the social structure such that crosses are black people and they have all the power, and then noughts are white and they don't. And then she uses that to show, so for example, there's a scene where Noor is given a plaster and it's really dark brown and it really stands out on their skin. And like, I'd never thought about plasters before, and the fact that they match my skin.
If you can travel and if you can take your kids to see the world and experience different cultures, I mean, that's just an amazing privilege if you can do it, if you're in a position to.
And I think we're so well placed here with all the internationalism and the international schools and all of that, so that's really good.
But also, interestingly, you say that because my children obviously went to school here, and they really don't notice that people are, I think they do now, they're 16, but at a younger age, they really didn't notice. And while that's lovely and innocent, we do owe it to society to acknowledge that people are different and they do have different experiences, and we do need to make accommodations to give people the privilege that we have automatically just by being here.
But as you said, Stephanie, about your mum and the whole thing about the eyebrows and the hair, these comments, they start at home. They're so random, and sometimes culturally it's very hard to tell. Like, for example, an older family, don't phrase something a certain way, don't talk to my child a certain way, because it's not coming from a place of malice. It's not coming, for example, in India, the one thing is, when you go on the beach and you put sunblock, make sure you put your sunblock, you're going to get really tanned, you're going to get really dark. We have this sort of, we still suffer from a sort of colonial mentality complex, that's my culture.
In our parents and our grandparents' lives, white was good, black was bad. White meant privilege, black meant being pushed to one side. I mean, my mother would not go in the sun either for the same reason. And I think it's from a place of the whiter you are, the more advantages you're going to have.
Ongoingly, but particularly at the moment, it does talk about colorism, right? And that's why there's a whole industry of skin lightening creams. Because, there is, like, within racism, it's not as simple as saying, it's just racism and that's it. Like, there is also colorism within that, and people with darker skin have less job opportunities, considered less attractive. Like, it's all underpinned by a framework of European beauty ideals, and I think you mentioned a colonial mindset.
I also think it's quite difficult. I mean, my father, definitely, he's 75, he's as British as they come, as English as they come, and he is not going to change his views. He just isn't. So I feel like the best I can do is share my views, and I get quite cross, and it's been quite difficult to have polite conversations because I feel very sort of defensive and upset, and it offends me to hear the way he talks about people. And I don't think I'm ever going to change his opinion, and I think accepting that is something that I find really difficult doing because I want everyone to get it.
But then also I have been amazed. So I moved for undergrad when I was 20 in 2013, and I've been amazed at how attitudes have changed in my family. For example, like towards people who are Muslim in those years, but it took me a really long time to realize that, and I don't know that was actually me like kind of badgering them or belligerent them. It was actually just kind of talking frankly about my friends and my life and living in Abu Dhabi, and then seeing kind of how their attitudes changed and being like, oh wow, like I didn't realize that they would change their opinions quite so dramatically. But it didn't happen overnight, obviously. It was a long process.
Any advice that you can give, constructive advice that you can give us parents who are raising children today, especially in these tumultuous times?
Definitely to teach children to notice the differences and to value the differences. Trying to make sure that you bring stories and TV and whatever sort of social media that portrays people of colour in a good, positive light.
But there's no doubt that like kids are already learning this really young, so you have to start really young to give them the skills to critically interrogate that.
Anything you guys would want to add to this conversation? Is there anything you feel that you really want to add that you think is really important and that needs to be heard?
I think, there are so many resources out there. I think it's really important to talk about the burden that is often placed on people of colour, particularly, we started at this saying we're white women, like it's not anyone's responsibility to educate me. I have to take the impetus and go and buy the books and then also use that to self-reflect. So it's one thing like learning the knowledge, but if you're not going to put in the effort to say, what thoughts am I having? Like sometimes I shock myself with my thoughts and then I'm like, oh, that was really prejudiced.
I feel very strongly that I am an ally. I want to be an ally. I want to help other people become allies. I think it's very difficult for a lot of people to find their voice. And it's easier to sit quietly and, I think like Obama said, be woke from the sofa, stand up and speak and take on the struggle as if it's your own. And also, transfer your privilege to those who don't have it.
Okay, well, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for being here. Guys, I hope all of this has helped. We're discussing some very sensitive issues, so If you do have any comments, please feel free to add them in the section below. Please comment, share, like, subscribe. A big thank you to both of you. Thank you for watching, everyone, and see you next week.